Before cameras existed, history never recorded a face. It recorded power. A king could be painted taller than he stood. A queen could be made younger, colder, more perfect than time allowed. And an emperor could compress the fear of an entire empire into a single calm gaze carved from stone. But behind every one of those portraits was flesh, age, ambition, loneliness, and secrets that no layer of paint could fully conceal. Welcome to History Reborn AI. Today, we use AI to look again at 20 royal faces from a world before photography. If you stay until the last portrait, you may never look at a royal painting quite the same way again. Like this video, share it with someone who loves history. And now sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Number 20. He stands inside the stone as if he were always there. Rigid shoulders, a young face, eyes that do not blink and were never meant to. Menkaure, Pharaoh of Egypt's 4th dynasty and builder of the smallest of the 3 great pyramids at Giza, was not recorded by his artists as a man who feared or doubted. He was recorded as the ideal of royal permanence. Egyptian sculpture was not portraiture in the modern sense. It was declaration. The body upright, the gaze forward, the proportions deliberate. Not to capture a moment, but to establish a truth the kingdom needed to believe. AI reconstruction draws from the famed triads of Menkaure, softening the cold geometry of granite into something warmer. Skin with depth, eyes with focus, a jaw that once carried the weight of an entire civilization. He does not step out of the stone as a god. He steps out as a man who was required to carry all of Egypt on the surface of his face. Number 19. She stands at the entrance of her mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari in the carved image of a man. False beard carved beneath her chin, double crown placed above her brow, eyes that do not ask for permission. Hatshepsut, one of ancient Egypt's most powerful rulers, governed for over 2 decades as pharaoh. Not as queen regent, but as pharaoh. And every portrait she commissioned was a carefully constructed argument for why she had the right to stand there. The sculptures and painted reliefs that survive at Deir el-Bahari form the basis for AI reconstruction of her face. Strong, composed, neither soft nor severe, the face of a woman who understood that legitimacy must be visible before it can be believed. Her portrait was not a deception. It was the price of governing a kingdom that had no language for what she was, and so she gave it one. Number 18. The neck is long, the crown is blue. The face is so symmetrical it approaches the uncanny, almost too perfect, as if the sculptor wished to argue that beauty and divinity were one. The famous painted limestone bust of Nefertiti, carved around the 14th century BCE and now housed in Berlin, remains one of the most recognized objects in all of ancient history. But its perfection is the very source of its mystery. Was this the face she carried through the corridors of Amarna? Or was it the face the Atenist court needed the world to see? Flawless, ageless, aligned with a new theology that remade Egypt's gods in the image of light. AI reconstruction breathes life into what the sculptor left. Cold, the warmth behind the stone, the stillness of a woman who lived through religious revolution, and the slow erasure of a dynasty. Time preserved her beauty without condition, but it did not preserve her voice. Number 17. No pharaoh was sculpted quite like this. The chin extends too far. The lips are full and wide. The hips in certain reliefs are rounded in ways that defied every convention of how a king should be rendered. Akhenaten, the so-called heretic pharaoh who dismantled Egypt's ancient pantheon and replaced it with the worship of the sun disk Aten, did not merely rewrite theology. He rewrote the visual language of royal portraiture itself. Whether his distinctive appearance reflects a medical condition, a deliberate spiritual philosophy, or a revolution in artistic honesty remains debated by scholars. The truth is uncertain, but AI reconstruction guided by the Amarna period reliefs and colossal statues restores something striking, a face that is thoughtful, otherworldly, and strangely private. Not a monster, not a madman, a king who believed the light itself had tasked him with redrawing the sky. Number 16. The gold mask is the most recognized object ever pulled from the Egyptian earth. Lapis lazuli and obsidian eyes set above a face built for eternity, not for Tuesday mornings in a palace corridor. Tutankhamun ruled Egypt for roughly a decade, dying before the age of 20, and his reign would have vanished entirely into the silence of erased successors, had Howard Carter not broken through the sealed door in 1922. What the world inherited was not a historical record. It was a burial theater, gold, alabaster, layers of meaning designed to carry a young king into the afterlife with the appearance of immortal power. AI reconstruction draws from the mask, from tomb sculptures, and from facial analysis of his mummy, translating precious metal into something more fragile and more human. A young face, quiet, slightly distant, not yet old enough to have grown tired of the crown. Number 15. On a small silver coin struck in Alexandria, Cleopatra VII appears not as Hollywood imagined her. The nose is strong, the chin is defined. The profile carries authority rather than softness. This is a face built for negotiation, not for adoration. The last active ruler of the Ptolemaic Kingdom of Egypt. She reportedly spoke 9 languages and held court with the calculating precision of someone who understood that Rome was expanding and that charm alone would not hold the border. The coins, together with ancient busts and descriptions in Greek and Roman texts, give AI reconstruction a foundation that resists the mythology. The result is a face that does not need to be the most beautiful in the ancient world. Cleopatra never needed to be the most beautiful woman alive. She only needed to be the one no room could look away from. Number 14. The Alexander Mosaic of Naples, a vast, sweeping battle scene from Pompeii, captures him mid-charge, hair wind-blown, eyes wide, riding forward as though the world itself could not get out of his way fast enough. Alexander of Macedon conquered an empire, stretching from Greece to northwestern India before the age of 32, and every portrait made of him during or after his lifetime was less a likeness and more an argument. His generals commissioned copies of his image. His successors modeled their own portraits on his. The face reproduced on coins and in marble became a template for what ambition should look like. AI reconstruction draws from the mosaic, from the Azara Herm, and from surviving coins to restore a face that is unmistakably young, alive with impatience, lit by a certainty that the future was already his to ride through. Number 13. The statue known as Augustus of Prima Porta stands over 2 meters tall, arm raised, breastplate, carved with the imagery of cosmic victory, face frozen in permanent, composed authority. Augustus, the first Roman emperor, understood that power was not merely exercised, it was designed. Throughout his reign, he standardized his portraiture, ensuring that from Britannia to Syria, the face on the coin and the face on the statue conveyed the same message: young, controlled, chosen by the gods, not aging in the way ordinary men age. Some scholars estimate his official portraits barely changed across 4 decades of rule. That is not vanity, that is policy. AI reconstruction guided by the prima porta and the Moreau head renders a man of disciplined stillness. Sharp eyes, an almost imperceptible tension in the jaw, the face of someone who learned very early that being watched is the same as being powerful. Rome was not built only on roads and legions. It was built on a face that was never permitted to show weakness. Number 12. In the apse of the Basilica of San Vitale in Ravenna, she stands frozen in gold and glass, eyes larger than life, crown weighted with hanging pendants, robes draped in jewels that catch the light of candles lit 15 centuries ago. Theodora, Empress of Byzantium and co-ruler alongside Justinian I, is preserved in one of the most extraordinary royal images to survive from the ancient world. And yet the mosaic tells you almost nothing about what she actually looked like. The tesserae that compose her face are symbols, not observations. AI reconstruction uses the Ravenna mosaic as a structural foundation, translating the formal geometry of Byzantine sacred art into a living face. Dark eyes that hold their ground, a jawline that carries composure rather than softness. The face of a woman who, tradition holds, rose from the lowest rungs of Byzantine society to stand at the center of the empire's power. In the mosaic, she is motionless, but that gaze has never stopped watching the room. Number 11. He was called the Father of Europe, a title earned not through birth, but through conquest, conversion, and the sheer political weight of a man who reassembled the idea of Western empire from the wreckage Rome had left behind. Charlemagne, King of the Franks and first Holy Roman Emperor, crowned on Christmas Day in the year 800, left behind no contemporary portrait that scholars agree captures his true likeness. The coins show a face, but coins reduce and flatten. The later medieval paintings idealize and reimagine. AI reconstruction draws from the equestrian statuette attributed to his court, from coins, and from physical descriptions recorded by his biographer Lionheart, who noted his height, his strong neck, his large, expressive eyes. Some historians caution that even these descriptions served political purposes. The truth remains uncertain, but the face that emerges is not the fairy tale king. It is rougher, heavier, the face of a man who built an empire out of iron, faith, and incomplete maps. Number 10. She is carved in marble, lying on her tomb effigy at the Abbey of Fontevraud, with a book open in her hands. No urgency, no crown raised for battle, just stillness and the suggestion of a mind still working even in the quiet of stone. Eleanor of Aquitaine, Duchess of Aquitaine, Queen of France, then Queen of England, Mother of Kings. Survivor of a marriage that became a war and a captivity that lasted 15 years, was one of the most consequential women of medieval Europe. No contemporary painted portrait of her face survives with certainty. What remains are the tomb sculpture at Fontevraud and a handful of wax seals that show a figure of unmistakable bearing. AI reconstruction guided by these sources renders not a fairy queen, but something more difficult and more honest. A woman of intelligence and controlled force, who spent decades at the center of two crowns and outlasted nearly everyone who tried to diminish her. The tomb shows her resting. The face suggests a life that never truly stood still. Number 9. History gave him a title that needed no explanation and no qualification. Richard, King of England, from 1189 to 1199, was called the Lionheart before he was 30 years old, and the name followed him through the Third Crusade, through captivity in Austria, through the legends of troubadours, and the chronicles of monks who had every reason to make him larger than he was. The surviving visual record is sparse. A tomb effigy at Fontevraud, wax seals showing an armored figure on horseback, and a handful of later medieval portraits that owe more to imagination than to memory. AI reconstruction walks the narrow space between documented evidence and the myth that built itself around him, producing a face that is strong and open, shaped by campaign and weather, carrying the kind of certainty that made other men follow him into places they had no rational reason to go. History remembered the lion's heart. The face behind that title is still the more compelling question. Number 8. The Yuan dynasty portrait that survives in the National Palace Museum in Taipei shows a man who has no need to perform. Wide face, calm, heavy-lidded eyes, an expression that conveys absolute authority without raising a hand or lifting a voice. Kublai Khan, grandson of Genghis Khan and founder of the Yuan dynasty over China, ruled the largest contiguous land empire the world had seen. And yet, his official Chinese court portrait placed him not on horseback in the steppe tradition, but seated, robed, composed, embedded in the visual language of Chinese imperial power. That choice was political. AI reconstruction draws from the surviving Yuan portrait to render a face of considerable depth, watchful, unhurried. Neither the nomadic warlord of Western imagination nor the fully assimilated Chinese emperor either. He existed between two worlds, governing both, fully belonging to neither. The empire did not stand behind him in the portrait. It was already present in the way he looked out from it. Number 7. On the Catalan Atlas of 1375, he sits at the center of the African continent, crowned, robed, holding a gold nugget that glows even in the dim light of a medieval manuscript. Mansa Musa, emperor of Mali and ruler of one of the wealthiest kingdoms in the medieval world, undertook a pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324 that reportedly destabilized the gold markets of Cairo and left accounts in Arabic chronicles that have never been fully forgotten. The Catalan Atlas image, drawn by European cartographers who had never seen him, is the closest thing to a portrait that survives. It is as much projection as record. AI reconstruction must therefore work at the edge of what the historical sources allow, guided by the Atlas illustration, Arabic descriptions, and the artistic traditions of West African court culture. What emerges is a face of self-possessed authority, not the spectacle of wealth, but the quieter power of a ruler whose reputation traveled further than his armies ever needed to. Number 6. The surviving Spanish royal portraits of Isabella I of Castile do not invite warmth. The gaze is measured. The dress is restrained. There is no softness requested and none offered. Isabella, who unified the Iberian Peninsula alongside Ferdinand of Aragon, financed the voyage of Columbus, and instituted the Spanish Inquisition, understood that a queen regnant governed in a world that had limited language for what she was. Every portrait she commissioned was a carefully constructed argument for legitimacy. The face AI reconstruction draws from those paintings, rigid in composition, precise in execution, reveals something the formal style works to conceal. Beneath the control is a woman who chose discipline over warmth, not because she lacked the capacity for either, but because she understood exactly which one would keep the crown on her head. Number 5. No royal portrait before the age of photography commands a room quite like this one. In Hans Holbein, the Younger's famous depiction, Henry VIII of England stands with legs planted wide, shoulders filling the frame, jewels layered across a chest that takes up all available space. The painting is not a likeness. It is a manifesto. Henry ruled England for nearly 4 decades, broke with Rome, dissolved the monasteries, and had 2 of his 6 wives executed. And through it all, Holbein's image controlled what the kingdom was permitted to see. A king who could not be questioned, not in person and not in paint. AI reconstruction, drawing from Holbein and the broader Tudor portrait tradition, renders the man beneath the performance. Older than the propaganda suggests, carrying the particular heaviness of someone who has spent a lifetime making decisions that cannot be undone. Holbein painted a king beyond challenge. AI restores the question of what that man saw when the court cleared and he stood alone before the mirror. Number 4. By the final decade of her reign, the painted face of Elizabeth I of England had become something closer to a legal document than a portrait. White lead complexion, pearls layered like armor. Eyes open and expressionless, fixed on a point just beyond the frame. Elizabeth understood, perhaps better than any monarch of her age, that a royal face was a political instrument, and she managed hers accordingly. Aging was not permitted in her official portraits. The Rainbow Portrait, the Armada Portrait, the Ditchley Portrait, each preserve a version of eternal queenship that has less to do with the woman who sat for them than with the idea of England she needed her subjects to believe in. AI reconstruction, drawing from the earlier Darnley portrait and the broader court tradition, reaches behind the iconography. A face of exceptional intelligence and deliberate concealment, a woman who understood that every wrinkle read by a foreign ambassador was a piece of information she could not afford to give away. The portraits kept her forever queen. What they hid was the cost of it. Number 3. The 16th century portraits of Mary, Queen of Scots, present a face of composed beauty, pale skin, dark eyes. The slight downward tilt of a woman accustomed to being looked at rather than listened to. She was Queen of Scotland from infancy and Queen Consort of France by marriage. And from the moment she returned to Edinburgh after her husband's death, her face became a contested document, read differently by Catholics and Protestants, by Scotland and England, by those who saw in her a legitimate heir and those who saw a threat that needed to be contained. AI reconstruction, drawing from the surviving French and Scottish royal portraits, renders a face that is more complex than the Romantic tradition allows. graceful but not passive, composed but carrying a particular quality behind the eyes that suggests a woman who knew exactly how her image was being used and had long since made peace with the impossibility of controlling it. Her portrait does not only ask what she looked like, it asks why a face becomes a battlefield long after the woman behind it is gone. Number 2. In Hyacinthe Rigaud's portrait of 1701, Louis XIV of France fills the canvas as Versailles fills the imagination. Ermine-lined robe cascading to the floor, red-heeled shoes rising above the marble, a wig of extraordinary volume, and a hand resting on a scepter with the casual ease of a man who has never needed to reach for anything, because everything has always been brought to him. Louis ruled France for 72 years, the longest reign of any major European monarch, and he understood that the king's body was not a private thing. Every gesture, every portrait, every formal ritual of the French court was a performance in which the monarch was simultaneously the actor and the stage. AI reconstruction, drawing from Rigaud and the broader Versailles portrait tradition, attempts something the court painter was not commissioned to do: to find inside the theater of sovereignty a face that was also a person. One who spent a lifetime being watched, who learned to return the gaze without revealing anything, and who built an entire civilization around the principle that he himself was the sun. He did not merely sit on the throne. He made his own image the axis around which a kingdom turned. Number 1. She is 23 years old in Elisabeth Vigée-Lebrun's first great portrait of her. Silk dress catching the light, powdered hair arranged with artful precision, an expression that balances grace with the faint suggestion of discomfort. Marie Antoinette arrived in France from Vienna at the age of 14, delivered by her family to a marriage and a role she had no voice in choosing, and from that moment her face was never entirely her own. The portraits Vigée-Lebrun painted of her were diplomatic instruments as much as art, designed to present the Austrian-born queen as elegant, maternal, French enough for a court that never fully accepted her. When the revolution came, those same portraits became evidence in a trial of public opinion she could not win. The image that had been built to protect her became the image used to condemn her. AI reconstruction, drawing from Vigée-Lebrun's sustained and intimate record of the Queen's face, restores something the political turbulence buried. A young woman, cultivated in ceremony from earliest childhood, carrying the particular fragility of someone who was taught that composure was a duty and vulnerability a danger. Before cameras existed, no one controlled how history would remember them. They could only leave portraits behind and trust that those who came after would look with something close to fairness. History kept the gowns and the pearls and the accusations. But behind the oil and the canvas, there is still a face waiting to be seen as something more than the story told about it. These 20 faces once ruled empires, shaped history, and carried crowns that history both celebrated and condemned. If their stories moved you, share this with someone who believes history deserves to be seen, not only read. More portraits are coming.